Hi, my name is Rain Clement and I'm a student from Hartland College. Our chapel talk today is by Pastor David Grams on the topic of the seven trumpets. I pray that you will be blessed by this message.
Well, it's mosaic time again, little vignettes from here and there to appropriately frustrate you, and then you can be studying on your own and follow these things through for the rest of your life. Let me see. There's so many things I want to give you little portions of, but I'll begin with my little Bible I have here. And this is a very special one. There's nothing like it. It created quite a stir up in the college office when I unveiled it. It says here on the inside flap, which is really heavy, I would imagine this is close to the weight of the one that Ellen White held out, for this is really heavy. But it has my mother and dad's name on it. And it was a gift to them from the Boys Club officers and members at Columbia Academy. Before my dad went into college work, he was the dean there at Columbia Academy. And this is about 54 years old. This is when it was given to them, and it has all the guys' signatures and everything. But what makes this so interesting, I'll be showing my Life and Teachings class, is not only the artwork, but some of the interesting additions in it. It is a King James edition Bible, but it has at the end the Psalms of David in meter. I don't think meters in inches and feet. What kind of meter? Yes, M-E-T-R-E, meter. And the Psalms of David in meter. Now, what does that mean? Well, if you know even, a tad bit, which is about how much I know about ancient Hebrew, you realize that they were real big on rhyme. But it isn't the kind of rhyme you have, that you're thinking of. I came to an open door and I was looking for more. That kind of thing. You're always trying to rhyme something. But to the ancients, their rhyming was more subtle and maybe we might say sophisticated. So you would have in the Psalms a statement and then either a contrasting statement or reinforcement of that original statement. So thy word is a lamp unto my feet and see, that's rhyme to the ancients. Because you said it was a lamp and then you give that reinforcing phrase that states it in a different way. But this has the Psalms of David in what we would call Western rhyme, but with Elizabethan King James language. So how many of you know the first Psalm? You kind of think of it, blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly. I'm going to read it to you here, parts of it. Listen to this. How blessed and happy is the man who walketh not astray in counsel of ungodly men, nor stands in sinners' way, nor sitteth in the scorner's chair, but places his delight upon God's law and meditates on his law day and night. And the whole Psalms are done this way. It is fascinating. Using King James language and turning it into this lyrical rhyming pattern. And it's a very, very interesting arrangement. Now, somebody up at the office wanted to see Psalm 23. I won't say who it is, but how it reads here. And I'll read just a little of Psalm 23, which is the Lord, the shepherd's psalm, right? The Lord is my shepherd. So let's see. My shepherd is the Lord most high, and all my wants shall be supplied. In pastures green he makes me lie, and leads by streams which gently glide. And of course, they're really pushing the limits here on rhyming, but it's close. He in his mercy doth restore my soul when sinking in distress. For his name's sake he evermore leads me in paths of righteousness. It really is a new way to imprint them in your mind, isn't it? So for those of you who are just absolutely livid with jealousy and would like to see this, I'll have it up in my office if you'd like to look at it sometime. I know my dad would be happy because the Lord willing next week I'll be with him for his 100th birthday, and I'm going to take some pictures and share with him that I have shared this with people from 19 countries of the world. And it's really out there. Now, one other little vignette, a couple of them. I put this together some years ago, and I have a copy for everyone. I'm not sure I'm going to give it today. I might tantalize you and give it later. But it's entitled, Making the Testimony Meeting All That It Can Be. And what it is just some collection with very few extra remarks of Ellen White concepts on how to do testimony meetings. And of course I could say this because I wasn't here yesterday and I didn't ask for a report, and so I'm not targeting anything here. But I just think that it's always a good idea to keep these principles in mind when we're doing a testimony service. So I'm going to just read you a couple of them, and if it's in your heart that you want one right away, you'll recognize me and you can see me and I'll give you one. Here's what she says in early writings. Make them interesting. All should have something to say for the Lord, for by so doing they will be blessed. Of course, some, quote, study to get something new, something great, and to have their words exact to the ear and pleasing to man, and God's Spirit leads them. That certainly is not a problem here. Your testimonies are just authentic, and that's good. It's better to have an imperfect, language-wise or however, an imperfect, authentic testimony than one where everything is clipped just perfectly. But it doesn't really reveal the intent of the heart. And you all understand that. But I'm going to get a little invasive here. Second testimonies. God does not require us to make these seasons tedious and wearisome by remaining bowed quite a length of time, listening to several long prayers. We may think, maybe I'm making light of this, but I don't think, she even mentions one place, even the angels get tired. And I think we need to reserve our tedious prayers for the closet. And you can make them as tedious as you want. But we really need to think when we're in public about that. She says, and for most occasions, prayer should be, quote, no, quote, more than 10 minutes duration. And then she suggests interspersing prayers with, quote, singing or exhortation. We've got, that's what often happens here, and I think that's wonderful. I wanted to give one more here just to kind of, this is Counsels to Teachers 502. The social meetings and the testimony services should be managed in such a way as to make them seasons not only of profit, but of positive pleasure. Which is often what we feel here, And then here's another one from Counsels to Teachers 245. If you have acquired the habit of speaking in a low, indistinct way, you should regard it as a defect and put forth earnest efforts to overcome, that you may honor God and edify his children. Now, all of us come from different backgrounds, so we're not trying to make everybody the same. We have to really be careful about this. But when you're speaking here, make every effort to practice throwing your voice. And you do that partly by thinking, projection. One of the greatest music lessons I ever had was from the principal trombonist of the Portland Symphony, where he explained how he projects his tone as to how it will sound toward the back of the auditorium, not right next to him. And indeed, if you were to sit right next to him, you could hear air. My. But when you get a distance, it's a gorgeous round tone. And with the human voice, of course, you can have the benefit of both. People can hear you nicely close and far away. So you work on projection, which means, of course, you're not straining. You know, if I ask everybody to take a big breath, this is how we take big breaths. Because we all know that you get your support from the shoulders. So, you know, that's a problem. We need to practice. I don't care how you do it. Mrs. Mayer is probably full of ideas. And you can go up to a wall. You can do whatever. Have your hands around you and breathe from lower. Big breaths. And push from down below. And pretend you're Santa Claus or whatever. And just do whatever. Ho, ho, ho. And practice those things. It's good for your health. And it'll help you to throw your voice. You don't have to be a ventriloquist to throw your voice. Well, having said those little things, again, if some of you have a burden to get one, I will deliver one free to you at any time you ask. Now, we're going to leave all these little vignettes, and we're going to move in to something that I have a great burden on. So for the next hour and 15 minutes or whatever, we'll cover this topic, which it deserves. You know, it's easy in a place like this, and it's easy when you go to different churches all the time, to forget that God's people study the same topic all over the world every Sabbath. We call it in the vernacular the Sabbath school lesson. Now, I know you've heard about it since who knows when, but you cannot overemphasize the value of the Sabbath school lesson. It cannot be overemphasized. And I don't care what you're doing, and if you're giving a special program somewhere or whatever, seek. Now, we all don't bat 1,000 on this, but seek to know what the lesson is about that week. Seek to become conversant with the Sabbath school lesson. And just that systematic few minutes a day of going over those things that God's people are reviewing throughout the world will enrich your soul mightily. And you will be a blessing to others. Isn't that wonderful? So I don't know how many of you have it quarterly. I'm not going to ask for raised hands because I do not want to distinguish someone for their lack of attention to this detail. But I would do whatever you can to get a quarterly. And in this quarterly, we're studying the book of Revelation. And we seek to simplify the book of Revelation. This week we are studying the... Oh, that's good. I mean, it wasn't like you all belted it out, but that was pretty good. There were enough of you that I caught it, even with my fossilized ears. The 7 what? Trumpets. The 7 trumpets. Now, one of the things we know about the 7 trumpets is that they parallel the 7 churches and the 7 seals. The trumpets, of course, are more focused on what's happening out there in the world at large, rather than the condition, per se, of God's people. You notice that, right? The churches are talking about your Laodiceanism and mine. And the seals are talking about the loss of primitive godliness and purity, right? You get into the trumpets and you start getting into the machinery of political maneuverings and how this world develops in its rebellion against God. So in that context, this week, we study the 7 trumpets. Now, you need to seek ways to simplify these teachings so that you can share with others in a simple way what these are about. For example, I would recommend highly, more than you can believe, the Bible Handbook by S.N. Haskell. Now, it wasn't written yesterday, admittedly. In fact, it was published the year that my daddy was born. So it's celebrating 100 years this year, and yet it's as fresh as a daisy on a warm spring day. And so I would like to suggest to you something that is just from a phrase. I was going to give all of you something from this, but here's a little section on the 7 trumpets, which probably in a more succinct manner summarizes the 7 trumpets than anything you'll ever get. So let me summarize the summarization. Listen to this. I'm quoting. The first 4 trumpets deal with the breaking up of Western Rome. The last 3 with the overthrow of Eastern Rome. Now you have everything you needed to know. Go to your churches tomorrow and share. The first 4 are the breakup of. Now I hope we didn't lose you. That would be what famous city? Rome, etc. And then the last 3 we move east. And we have all these exciting maneuverings from the man who camped his tent in the desert, and we'd go and hibernate for a while and come back with all these fanciful ideas, right? Let's see, what was his name? Muhammad, yes. And I think we hear a little about him today, don't we, still? All right, so everything that we study in here is so relevant. Oh, you say, Pastor Grant, you really are an old geezer because you don't know what the trumpets are really saying today. The trumpets are talking about what the Pope's going to do in the future, and that's old stuff. That was okay for Adventists 150 years ago. But we're into new, fresh, invigorating understandings of the trumpets. You hear this all over. If you've been out of this room, you've heard it somewhere. Now, having said that, you know what these people are missing, and it's so sad it just brings crocodile tears to my eyes. And I'll tell you what it is. These people, in an effort to make relevant the Bible and reinterpret all the prophecies, forget that a great book, a great narrative, a great biography has this zenith point that it's driving to. And if you read the whole book, by the time you get to the final pages, your visual perceptors are just glued. And you finish the book just totally involved with the story. You know what I mean? Some books are like that. That's the way the Bible is. It has not lost anything by repeating the old story of how it speaks of history in the book of Revelation. It doesn't lose anything by taking our traditional understanding of the trumpets and focusing in on the fact that we are living in the time of the 7th trumpet almost, aren't we? And we're living in the time where the trumpeter is opening the trumpet case and taking out the mouthpiece and warming up a little, getting his lips ready. And then you move into what we study this week. And in the days when the 7th angel sounds, not just beginning to sound. And we're right in that tiny period that has some overlap from the seals between verses 13 and 14 in Revelation 6 and a preparatory to the final proclamation of the gospel and the wrapping up of everything. It's an exciting time to live, but it loses its excitement if I try to denude the story of its historical importance. I've just demeaned it. I've watered it down. It's like a smoothie that I ate. It was more like water than a smoothie. And you know, that's what people do to the Bible. They make it so weak in trying to make it so fresh that they take away all the great blessings God has. And so I want all of you to ponder seriously your study of the seven seals. And in closing, I'm going to suggest something to you, very, very, hopefully new to you. You know, for years we didn't talk about the sanctuary too much because that was what Brensmeet was talking about. So we had to be careful about that. And so Brensmeet not only came up with fanciful ideas that derailed us, but he kept good people from studying the sanctuary because they didn't want to be called one of those. And the same has happened with the book of Ezekiel. Sometimes we've been afraid to study Ezekiel, particularly chapters 8 and 9, because we didn't want to be connected with the famous offshoot group of Adventism that majors on Ezekiel 8 and 9, which is Shepherd's Rod, or the Branch Davidians. Epitomized by David who? Koresh. And where was he at? Waco, Texas. And so, in an effort to stay away from that, maybe we've lost some real blessings of what it's really teaching us. And if you compare Ezekiel 8, 9, and 10 with this week's lessons, you realize that the book of Ezekiel speaks of a thorough investigative judgment of ancient Jerusalem. And this investigation takes place in Ezekiel 8 and 9. And they go through the town and they see the saints with their heads bowed toward the sun and worshiping all kinds of creepy crawly things and losing their way. Chapter 10, the Lord with great reticence folds his garments and begins to pull away from his people. It's an incredibly instructive story. And you connect that with what you're studying this week and the seven trumpets, and you will be solemnized as never before that God is trying to tell his people to get ready for a great crisis ahead. Amen. Now I know we're supposed to have formal prayers and everything, but I just want to, and I want to have another prayer, but I want to have a special prayer for you this Sabbath, that the seven trumpets will become more meaningful. Amen.